It looks like West Ham United are set to sign Callum Wilson, the former Newcastle United striker, is currently a free agent after leaving St James's Park in the summer. That's today's big story. Warning, I'm not very happy about it. But before we discuss it, because I'm likely to get wound up as we discuss it, I'm going to promote the raffle first. Today's the first day of the raffle. Top prize, this match-worn Mark Noble shirt, a very rare shirt because of the NHS love heart. They wore this shirt during COVID. There is match-worn Mark Noble shirt. Prize number 2 is a signed Mark Noble shirt. The last season at the Bowling Ground, Farewell Bowling, signed by Mark Noble. And we've got a Mark Noble signed captain's armband as well. 3 prizes up for grabs. It's running until next Sunday. To get your raffle ticket, the link's in the description below. £5 per ticket. However, as always, if you buy 2 tickets, you get your third ticket for free. I think that's everything covered in regards to the raffle. So best of luck. Thank you to everybody that gets a raffle ticket and supports the channel. Best of luck. 3 top prizes up for grabs. Frankie, let's start. Normally, I'd say let's start at the start and go forward. Actually, I want to work backwards. Today's big news: we're likely to sign Callum Wilson. What's your thoughts?
A very typical West Ham signing. Couldn't be more of a typical West Ham signing, to be perfectly honest. There is a part of me, a very small part, that is kind of happy that this should put to bed the potential of Antonio signing a new contract. I don't think it makes sense. I think that's the 2 options. I think West Ham have literally gone. We bring back in Mikel Antonio, who's just been through what we know has been a real tough time for him, or we sign an old, very aging Callum Wilson. Just a very typical West Ham thing to do. And if we go back to what I was saying in that post-season when we were struggling for season ticket sales, really sort of like I said, we just need a marquee striker signing just to give everyone that energy, that boost, that lift before the new season. But I had zero confidence that West Ham would do it. And typically West Ham are true to form. We are not getting the striker that I really hoped for, which is very, very disappointing.
I'm not happy about this at all. I'd rather have Callum Marshall than Callum Wilson, in all honesty. I think I'd rather have Mikel Antonio than Callum Wilson because I know that Antonio would run through a brick wall for the West Ham United shirt, whereas Wilson, I don't know, he might do, but there's nothing appealing about this signing whatsoever for me. We've gone, last season, we started with the season with Fulkrug, Antonio, and Ings as our strikers. They had a combined age of over 100. Our youngest striker was Fulkrug, who's 31. Well, if this happens and our options next season are Fulkrug and Callum Wilson, we've somehow managed to increase the average age of our strikers despite offloading Ings and Antonio. Last season, Callum Wilson played over 300 minutes in the Premier League for Newcastle. Antonio played more than double, and he nearly died halfway through the season. That's the reality. He's incredibly injury prone. And when I seen him at the end of the season for Newcastle, he looked, it's harsh, but he looked done. He wasn't very good. Newcastle were high energy, high tempo, and he just looked completely out of place. And I sort of had confirmation from Newcastle fans because I discussed that on my own YouTube channel about how they needed to get rid of Wilson and bring in another striker. And Newcastle fans were in agreement with me in the video, saying, yeah, it's been nice having him here. He's a lovely bloke, but it's time for him to go. I'm not even sure. Actually, I am sure. He's not even the best free striker with Premier League experience that's available. I'd rather have Calvert-Lewin. If you have to have a free striker, I'd rather have Calvert-Lewin. Hell, Frankie, I think I'd rather have Jamie Vardy. I'm not even taking the piss. I think I'd rather have Jamie Vardy and Callum Wilson. At least Vardy was fit all season last season and scored goals in the Premier League. Wilson didn't score at all. He was a very, very good Premier League striker, Wilson. But that's the point, past tense. This one just screams David Sullivan, because his agent is Will Salthouse. It's impossible to ignore that as well, that the agent of Callum Wilson is someone that's very friendly with the Sullivans. I just can't get on board with this signing whatsoever. I hope it doesn't happen, but I feel quite confident it will happen. I'm just not happy about it. And I think what else I'm not happy about is I feel like Potter's almost getting stitched up a little bit with this transfer. I feel like it's almost getting placed at his door. So if it goes wrong, blame the manager, because this is right out the David Sullivan playbook. Because we have to go back to yesterday now, which was when the article came out that Potter won't be prioritising a striker. And it feels a bit like that gets put out there. Then it's a case of Sullivan says, well, the article in Hammers News was that Sullivan says that he feels they need 2 strikers. So we'll get Wilson in. Manager doesn't want a striker. Okay, well, I'm going to go get one because I think we need one. So here comes Callum Wilson. And I feel like Potter's getting thrown under the bus a little bit and almost blamed as to why we're getting Wilson. And it'll come out that Potter wants Callum Wilson. I've got no doubt about it that will come out next as well. And I'm just not buying it at all, Frankie. It's something that I've seen time and time again with Sullivan under previous managers. It's just a different manager, that's all.
Yeah, it's exactly what he always does. And you can just read it like a book now. I think in the old days, he'd do these little tricks and maybe it would sort of pacify the fans. And it did used to work. I remember many occasions where Sullivan would come out, the fans were starting to get a little bit agitated, making noises, really getting frustrated. And then he'd come out with a little story like this, and it was just all done to just try and just calm everyone down a little bit. But it just stands out now. He's done it so many times, and we've seen this it's just getting old. And like you say, we couldn't just go and sign Callum Wilson without putting out that story first. We've got to put that story out, because without that, everyone would be up in arms. So we'll put that out there. And like you say, 100%, this is all stemming from the fact that we're not going to go and spend the money on a proper out and out striker. I cannot believe that, knowing Fulkrug's issues with injuries and everything else, that a manager of any sort would sit there and go, I'm happy to rely on that man for me next season. That makes no sense whatsoever. So the manager would be sitting there thinking, and also there's no way, as much as I'm a big fan of bringing through youth and want to see more of it, and also the fact that I'd love to see Callum Marshall being given a chance, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't have a top striker at the club. It absolutely doesn't. So, the way that they've gone about it is all to do with just making sure that we're not going to get upset. We're not going to get angry on these fan channels, that on the first game of the season, we're not all going to be frustrated already. It's literally, and this is exactly why we never have a manager worth his weight in gold, who's outspoken, who's a proper character. I always say that I found Potter very almost boring in the way he talks. I don't find him a sort of the type of man who stands up to be counted. That's what I wanted from West Ham. This is why we end up with these managers, because Sullivan gets away with doing this nonsense. It's exactly why. And if you had a different manager in there right now and he tried this little game that he's playing, they'd be straight either into that boardroom saying, what are you talking about? I'd never said that. Or they'd be turning around and just coming out in the media and going, no, this ain't right. And it is just a very typical Sullivan West Ham thing to do. Look, the Callum Wilson thing, and I know you say there's a lot of others there. I'm not sure that I prefer any of them, really. Like, it's to the point where you don't want any of that anymore.
Yeah.
And all it does is absolutely show the difference between a club like Newcastle going on the journey that they're going on at the moment, and why they're doing things that they're doing, and why we had the season that we had last season. And anytime we ever try and get any sort of step forward, we go multiple steps back. And this is exactly this again. It is incredibly frustrating as a West Ham fan. But again, G, and I know I can see how agitated you are, and I see how wound up you are about the whole situation. But we go like this, don't we? And we watched that game the other day, and there's so many positives, and you sort of sit there and you think, well, actually, we're only a couple of signings away here from actually being a pretty decent outfit and being able to look forward to next season. And that was the midfield player that we know we desperately need. And it was the striker. And that doesn't seem out of reach to me. Just two signings, midfielder, striker. And actually, I think we'd all go into the season being okay. I think we'd all be all right. But instead, West Ham find a way to take any bit of positivity that you had, tear it all up and chuck it away. So it is incredibly frustrating, Gio. And yeah, it's just so annoying.
What I will add for context is I think Newcastle were offering Wilson a new contract for this season. However, it was incredibly heavily incentivized, which is if you don't play, you don't get paid essentially. So if you do play, you will get your money, but when you're unfit, that's it kind of thing. Therefore, Wilson said, no, thank you. I'm going to go, like what Antonio's doing with us, which is now I'll go get a proper contract elsewhere. Thank you. So Newcastle said, thank you very much. But the significant difference is he's a big part of that changing room at Newcastle because he's been there for a few seasons. He's one of the more senior players, etc. He's not got that authority. I mean, you might walk into West Ham and demand it immediately, but he also might not. He's still a new signing for us. I think sometimes the context is important. I agree with what you're saying. I don't believe Potter doesn't want a striker. When the article came out, it said Potter prioritising a striker. Then I've seen some say Potter doesn't want a striker. I thought, well, it didn't say that. It said he's not prioritising one, which I agree with, because I personally, now you won't because you're prioritising a striker, but I'm prioritising a midfield. So I read that. I thought, well, great. That means we don't have loads of money, but what we do have right now, we're going to spend it on another position. I'm hoping that's the midfielder. I'm okay with that. But what I was hoping it didn't mean was we're going to go after the freebies or something. But I thought it might mean that we might only spend 50 million on a striker rather than 30, 40 million on a striker that will spend the bulk of the transfer fee in other areas of the team, which is good. But to go from that, and when you said no manager's going to sit there and say, oh, we don't need another striker, we'll go with Fulkrug. Well, that just doesn't really add up. Then you hinted, and I'm assuming what you meant was no manager's going to sit there and go, oh, we'll go Callum Marshall as a second striker, and that's that. Was that what you were alluding to, that Potter wouldn't do that? Right, I agree. But what I also don't think he'll do is go, oh, we need another striker because Fulkrug's injury prone, Marshall's too inexperienced, so let's bring in another injury prone striker. I just don't believe it. Potter publicly said, I want to get in younger profile players, etc., etc. Well, this ain't that. This is the complete opposite. Now, we may bring in a Lucas Stassen or something as well as Callum Wilson, and that would make me slightly happier. But I'm still not sure that we would require Callum Wilson if we did that. Just have Fulkrug, have Stassen, have Marshall, have Bowen as an alternative striker. I just don't think this is a necessary one. And I also think it's too early. And I appreciate whoever does get Callum Wilson is going to want him to get pre-season. But we're not even in August yet. This feels like a bit of a desperate panic signing. But we're not in that situation. If this was the last week of August or something, then certainly go, right, okay, we can't get another striker. We're just going to have to go get the free guy. But we shouldn't be doing that just yet. This is annoyed me, and I think I'm annoyed for two reasons. One, it's the possible or probable signing, and I know people say get behind him. Trust me, everyone will. If you don't want Wilson, doesn't mean you're going to boo him. You're going to hope he comes in and smashes it and scores goals. But I think there's a bit of head in sand if you go, well, Callum Wilson, he's not going to be the best signing in the world. You've got to ignore what's happened last season at Newcastle. I don't want him to join, but if he does, I hope he does well. Of course I do, because he's a West Ham player. But it doesn't mean my opinion is going to be swayed because he's possibly becoming a West Ham player. I'm not going to sit here and go, do you know what? Loved him at Newcastle last year, but he was fantastic. I didn't. I thought he was injured all the time, and when he was fit, he wasn't very good. That opinion remains the same. But if we had to go down the free player route, he's not even the best. That's why I brought up Calvert-Lewin and Vardy. I don't even think he's the best option out of all the free strikers. If you have to go down the free agent route, there's better ones available. Go into the loan market. You'll be able to pick up a better striker than Callum Wilson, probably. It's just... So there's two reasons I'm unhappy about this. One, it's a probable signing. Two, it's the way the narrative has been spun, the way that it's come out that Potter doesn't want to prioritise a striker. 24 hours before it comes out that we're probably going to sign Callum Wilson, it gets leaked by someone at the club. It's very convenient. It comes out the day before it comes out that we're likely to be signing Callum Wilson. I feel like it's chucking Potter under the bus a little bit, saying that's the reason we're signing Callum Wilson, because he don't want a striker. And it'll come out that Potter's on board with Wilson, and I'm just not buying it.
But it's multiple agendas, isn't it? Because look, you have to. I think with the board that we've got, and as we say, they're very true to form. They repeat the same things over and over again. We've got used to quite a lot of their stuff now, and we know that they have this old boys club of you scratch my back, I scratch yours, and he does that with Salthouse. And we have to accept that every single season there's going to be a signing that he does to help his friend. That is what it is.
Signed a good player. You did it last summer, Wan-Bissaka. That was a good signing.
And I fully accept that, and I understand that. And that's what I'm trying to say here, is that if you say that, no, he's not trying to throw Potter under the bus, and actually, no, that's probably the not the right way to word it. What it is he's trying to line Potter up as the fall guy if next season goes wrong. That's the way to word it. So he's lining Potter up to be the fall guy by spinning things the way that he wants to do it now. So, if he'd gone and got our striker, even if, like you said, it's a £15 million striker, and then he signs Callum Wilson and says, do you know what? We've got caught short with strikers in the last few years. Wilson's on a free. He's only going to be on a season-long contract. It's a backup. You swallow it. You actually sit here and you turn around and you go, okay, sort of makes sense. But they don't do that. And that would be the clever thing to do if you want to go and do his back scratching thing. But instead, it's, we go sign in. But also, how can I just set up and tee up that if in that first 8 games everything's all going wrong, then I can point fingers at somebody else rather than us. And this is exactly what he's doing.
Well, here's the situation, right? If we're signing Callum Wilson. So a week ago, before Wilson talk, how many strikers did you think we should sign?
I wanted just one big marquee striker. Right. That was for me.
So we're signing Callum Wilson. So let's just say Wilson signs today. Tomorrow, how many strikers do you think we should sign?
Well, I still think we need to sign another one.
That's thank you. I completely agree, by the way. My point is nothing's changed except that we've just used some of the wages. The wage bill has just been some of it's been allocated to Callum Wilson. So financially, we're more restricted, but what we actually need remains the same, which is we still need.
They don't care. We've got a loan attached to the club that we don't necessarily need, but it allows a friend of our board to take an interest payment. We do this. This is what we do. They don't care. Why are we in the financial situation we're in? Because this is the games that they play. They're never thinking about what's in the best interest of West Ham United. They don't care what's in the best interest of our football club. All they want to do is make sure they're all right and make sure their friends are all looked after, and that's it.
Yeah, I just can't get on board with it. I just can't. I just don't. No one will be able to change my mind either. It's not one of those things that someone can come along and persuade me to see why Callum Wilson would be a good signing. The only thing that could persuade me is he stays fit for a majority of the season next season and scores goals and makes a good impression on us and actually has a good contribution to West Ham next season. But here's the thing, though, with Evan Ferguson. We've seen a striker come to West Ham that for whatever reason Potter ended up not fancying, despite having worked with him at Brighton previously. And we've seen what the end game was, which was Ferguson just didn't get played. Potter wouldn't play him. Well, you better hope he likes Wilson. Otherwise, he's just going to not play him very much. He will play Fulkrug. He'll play Bowen up front. He might even give Marshall a go ahead of him as well. Whatever the situation is, you might end up finding that we just don't utilise him very much because Potter has shown that he will not play players that he doesn't fancy at this club. And I'm okay with that. I have an issue with him signing a player and not playing his own signing. That I have an issue with. But when he wasn't playing certain players that were already at West Ham and he's coming in and thought, I don't really like that guy or like that guy, I'm not going to play him very often. I'm okay with that because I look at that as strong management to some extent. If he's decided that's my players, I don't want him, he doesn't fit what I want to do, I'm not going to utilise him very much. I might disagree and think, actually, I think that's a good player you're leaving out there. But we could find ourselves in a situation where we've got Callum Wilson next season. We don't even play him when he is fit. But Antonio played double the amount of minutes as Wilson last season, and the guy nearly died in December. It's I just don't understand the benefit to West Ham United for this. I understand the benefit to Sullivan's favourite agent. I understand that, but I just don't see why this would be a good signing for us as a football club. I think it's 2 steps backwards. And when Sullivan has apparently said to Hamish News, we need 2 strikers, that's okay. We'll go get 2 strikers, but he doesn't have to be one of them. Go get in a marquee signing, get in a punt as well. This is a punt, but it's not the right one. I don't mind a gamble. I quite like it. But the younger players that you think might make it, might be good enough for the penalty, those are your punts. Guilherme, punt. I'm okay with that. Arguably, Diouf, punt. I'm okay with that. Callum Marshall, also a punt, but for the wrong reasons. Not because he might be good enough, it's because he might not be fit enough. And that's the wrong type of gamble to take. I would suggest there's a lot of evidence to suggest that he won't be okay next season. It just feels unnecessary, this signing.
We've just done it as well with Danny Ings. You'd think you'd learn. You'd sit there and you'd go, we've just done this with another player. Why are we doing it again?
The thing is, Frankie, we're playing hardball with Antonio at the minute, right? Why? Well, because we don't know if he'll be fit enough for next season. Well, yeah, that's fair, but you're basically going against that stance with Callum Wilson. You're basically saying to Antonio, here's a contract that's very appearance-based, and you're not getting what you want, but we're willing to offer you a really short-term deal to prove your fitness and stuff. And I appreciate it's different circumstances because of what happened to Antonio, but West Ham are reluctant to give Antonio that contract that he wants because they're not sure he's going to be fit enough for next season. Surely that exact question and doubt has to be in place for Callum Wilson as well. I don't know. I'm just disappointed.
If it was Callum Wilson, no GL or none at all, what would you do?
None at all. None. I just don't. Honestly, if you said to me it's Fulkrug, because Wilson's going to get in the way of Marshall's development. Now, I think at this point, maybe loaning Marshall out to a championship club is the best thing to do at this point, right? But if you said to me it's Marshall or Wilson as the 3rd or 4th choice striker at West Ham next season, I'm picking Marshall all day, every day. I'd rather he had an opportunity. Wilson played 300 minutes. If the 300 minutes are up for grabs next season, I'd rather Marshall had them than Callum Wilson. I would. Because if at the end of the season Marshall turns out to be half decent, brilliant. We've now got a really young striker ready for Premier League football. If he turns out he's not good enough, we know we need to sell him next season or loan him out or whatever. But Wilson, what are you going to learn? I just don't see any benefit to this transfer unless he manages to stay fit for the majority of the season and contribute more with us. At least when he played for Newcastle, he's playing in a team that create chances and score goals. We don't do that. We don't create chances. So the guy up front needs to be incredibly clinical. He got no goals for Newcastle in the league last season. None. That's with Anthony Gordon, Harvey Barnes, and Bruno Guimaraes, or Yolenton, whatever, supplying him. He's going to come here and get 1 shot a game if he's lucky. I'm not happy about the signing. But it's also, like I said, it's just the way it's all been spun about how Potter's prioritising a striker. We're signing Wilson. Potter's going to want Wilson. We've seen it before with every single manager under David Sullivan. And I know people say, why are you surprised? We're not surprised. But just because you're not surprised doesn't mean you can't be pissed off. That's where I am. I'm not surprised, but I'm pissed off because I don't like it. And it's chucking Potter under the bus a bit. But it's also, we're getting told repeatedly, funds are so restricted this summer, right? Well, if that's the case, you've got to make sure everything's right. Every quid counts. Well, you're ready to give him, let's just say 30 grand a week, which is incredibly low for a Premier League player. I've been generous to the club here. It's still 30 grand a week too much. It's still coming out of the budget. He's still going to have a sign-on fee. I bet you the agent's transfer fee is quite handsome as well, which is coming out of the transfer kitty. It all counts towards PSR. So this transfer will hoover up some of our very limited budget. So if you go after another striker, let's just say they identify a striker. Let's just say it's Lucas Stassin, and we go after him. We're like, oh, we've got 18 million. St. Etienne say, well, actually, it's 19.5 million. You can have him. We go, we can't afford that. Just spent 1.5 million on Callum Wilson's flipping agent, so we can't afford to pursue this deal anymore. If you had to get a free agent striker in, I think he's the wrong guy. But at least wait till later on in the window when you know we've done our business. We're not buying anyone else. We've got a little bit of cash left over that we can spend in PSR. Let's go get Callum Wilson in. Fair enough. Like you said, if you bring in another striker and you think we're a bit light, Potter doesn't want another striker, we think we should have, just in case we're getting in this low-cost deal, maybe fair enough. But I just think it's unnecessary and just too early in the transfer window. And the message it sends to the fan base is that, well, it's a transfer that stinks of desperation to me, Frankie. And that's worrying. It's the 22nd of July. That's a worrying situation being. Anyway, I appreciate I'm ranting away. I apologise.
No worries at all. For me, it just, again, alarm bells of... Well, actually, it's reassurance that the reason why we hadn't signed anyone before Kudus was sold is because the noise that we literally had no money and had to sell before we could buy was absolutely correct. And it does seem now like that's all the funds that we've got to play with. We've signed 2 fullbacks that's going to eat a big chunk of that away. There's not a lot left, and they've probably had and I think the reality of the conversation has been you can only have one or the other. So it's not Potter saying I don't need a striker, but it's him choosing a midfielder over a striker.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that, and I'm okay with that. By the way, I know. Like,
well, I'm not, Gio. It's like taking your kid into McDonald's and he wants an Happy Meal, and you say, actually, I can only afford either the burger or the chips. No, they don't want either; they want both. Like, that's the reality. Like, you know.
But I think there is a possibility Potter does want both, though.
Oh, he does. There's no question. You couldn't. So it is like one of those situations we've put a manager in again who's sort of gone in, glaringly obvious that he needs both.
Yeah. He's
been told it's one or the other, and you sort of go like that, don't you? You sort of go, really?
Also,
is that where we are?
You look at last season, I think it's fair to suggest he perhaps wasn't that sold on Fulkrug as a striker because he didn't start all the games right. So maybe he's had a massive change of heart going into this season, but I don't believe Potter doesn't want a striker. Right? I think he prioritises maybe midfield, goalkeeper, then striker. Maybe it's third on the list, for example. So he's maybe focusing on spending most of the money elsewhere or bringing them in first. But even more reason not to sign Callum Wilson and start spending some of that money. Just wait and see. I feel quite confident Wilson will still be a free agent on the 1st of August in a couple of weeks' time if we don't sign him right now. He will have options, but if you were to go to him, bear in mind, Sullivan's very good friends, allegedly, with Will Salthouse. It would be easy to say, look, we think we want him, but just give us a week, right? I think you could probably square that away with his agent. We'll say to Kent, well, just wait. I might be able to get you West Ham, but you're just going to have to wait a week. And then when we do get West Ham, I promise you, financially, you'll be all right because I'll get on really well with the chairman. That offer you've got from the Championship Club, don't worry, I can get you double that at West Ham. Just hold your horses. They would wait for West Ham. He's been free for a couple of weeks. No one else has gone in for him, reportedly. There's a reason for that. And like I said, I just think you're going to get a free striker. At least go get Calvert-Lewin. Or I can't believe I'm waiting to suggest Jamie Vardy again, who's 37 or 38 years old. But I'd feel more confident Vardy would contribute next season than would Callum Wilson would, which is just... But here we are. I mean, never know, Frankie. Maybe you'll come in and be our top goal scorer next season. We finish 7th in the league. Callum Wilson's bagged 15 goals and I look like a mug. It's happened before. Won't be the last time either. But I feel quite confident this won't be the transfer that makes me look a little bit silly. Like I said, I think it's just the messaging, the articles, that winds me up as much as anything else because it's behaviour. That is culture at West Ham. That's behaviours at West Ham. That's this time next year, Callum Wilson, even if he does sign, will be gone again, probably, right? Those behaviours, that culture will still be here. We will go through this again next time a chance. Oh, the manager doesn't want that. The manager wants this. And that's what irritates me more than anything. Callum Wilson, unfortunately for him, is just a symbol of how West Ham United are run. And maybe I fired a bit too much bullets in his direction in this podcast, but I'd be lying and being fake if I said anything else other than I don't want him at West Ham. Anyway, anything you'd like to add before we disappear, Frankie?
No, nothing at all. Other than I think I'm going to get up to Boreham Wood on Friday. It makes a lot of sense. I think I'm going to get up there and have a little look. So, yeah, should be a nice Friday evening out.
Good, man. Well, enjoy it. Thank you very much for joining us. Remember, raffle, noble items, match worn shirt, signed captain's armband, links in description and pinned comments. We've had 3 raffles so far, 9 winners, and all 9 winners have given us a 5-star review. So if you're thinking, I'm not sure how legit this is, go check it out. And also, when you put the raffle up, they authorize the raffle before it goes public. So when I set it up last night, I had to wait until this morning before it was live. So that gives a little level of security and peace of mind, perhaps. And I think 4 winners have put their photos of their prizes up on the raffle website as well. The person that won the captain's armband's got it on. He's put it on and he's wore it. I love it. Right, Frankie, thank you for joining me and listening to me puff my gums.
Feel better, Gio? Do you feel better?
No. Normally I do feel lighter at the end of it, but I think I'm actually got more wound up discussing it. I think part of the reason is, Frankie, is because this isn't the end of it. This story, Wilson, it's not finished. There's more to come. I think there will be let's tell everyone Graham Potter would love to sign Callum Wilson. Let's put that out there. So it's all on Potter, which maybe he does. But given what Potter has said and given Wilson's agent and stuff, I find it hard to believe at this point. And I think that's why I'm agitated, because there's more to come. But we've still got just over a month and a third of the transfer window to go. This won't be the last silly story or ending of the window. We've already had it before. Earlier on in the window, we've had this stuff getting put out there by the club about spend before we buy. There's been loads of leaks so far. There's another 6 weeks to go of the window or something like that. There's going to be more. There's going to be more on the horizon. I don't like it. It annoys me. It frustrates me because we're in a fragile position at the minute, West Ham, as a football club. I think we're quite fragile. Everything needs to go right for us to have a good season next season. And I just don't feel like everyone's pulling in the same direction, if that makes sense. I feel like the games are at hand. And we've seen this last summer, right, with Lopetegui. All this blame game stuff came out during the summer with Lopetegui, Steiden and Sullivan, and it continued into the season. It continued up until he was sacked. I hated Lopetegui. Didn't want him, hated him being here, but the environment at West Ham, it almost made it impossible for him to survive or thrive at the club. And I feel like, are we in a similar position now? I don't know. I just don't like it. It's uncomfortable. Anyway, shall we love them and leave them? Thank you very much. If you've listened to this, thank you for listening to me have a moan up. I'm looking forward to you in the comments. And if you enjoyed the podcast, please do drop a like on it. It's going to have a chat with myself and Frankie. Catch you in a bit.